What are we going to talk about today, Quinn?
Those are some nice moves, Mickey. Today, the Galactic Demystifying Science Alliance is going to talk about the human virome, which is the collection of viruses that occur in and on the human body.
So how's that relate to what we were talking about before?
Well, so far, we've talked all about how the humans came to understand bacteria as the main players in transmissible disease, and how an entire century of science after that moment was defined by seeing bacteria as bad and humans as good.
The battle.
Yep. War on microbes.
So human scientists discovered antibiotics in this war, and companies sold them as miracle drugs, and eventually humans came to understand that bacteria are actually way more than little creatures that cause disease. That's where they're at right now.
They even went so far as to realize the opposite. Studies of the microbiome, which is the whole collection of bacteria living on and in the human body, have shown them a strong relationship between bacterial health and human health. It's like when the bugs are happy, they keep the humans happy.
So this week, we're going to talk about how the human scientists came to understand the virome, this collection of viruses, in and on the body, and in the same way that they came to understand the microbiome.
Microbiome?
That's the microbiome.
Microbiome.
Biome.
Virome.
That's their species collection of bacteria.
Also known as bacteria. Yeah, the virome is a pretty new idea for the humans. And there's really two kinds of viruses, also known as viruses, relevant to the discussion. Those that reproduce in bacterial cells, and those that reproduce in human cells.
And the ones that reproduce in my food.
Oh.
Yep, I've been playing with the balance in my worms, found certain viruses critical to each species' flavor profile.
Mickey, that is so disgusting.
That's delicious.
Ugh. Have you ever looked to see where most of the viruses are located on your worms?
Well, they're just covered in them. Similar to what I read about the human virome, where the majority of viruses are found on the skin and intestines. Probably because those are the outer surfaces of the human, and on Earth, there's virions everywhere.
It's a little weird to think about the intestines as being the outer surface, but, it's just a big tube. Viruses, they're floating in the air, they're in the food, they're in the water. What's interesting is that even though they're all over the place, newborns, who grow in a sterile space inside another body, don't actually have any virions on them when they're born. It's only when they start experiencing the world do they collect viruses. It's crazy.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah.
But the process of getting your virome on Earth, it's a little different than on Alvafloss, where we're from.
Most things are.
Yeah, a little bit. So, it used to be that you'd get born and just collect whatever virions are around, just like Earth. But then our scientists noticed when each of us was infected with certain viruses, we were healthier and lived a whole lot longer.
And since the virions those scientists identified preyed mostly on microbes, the theory that they came up with was that a certain collection of virions could control the bacterial balance inside the body, which prevents some of the kind of harmful overgrowth that can lead to disease.
Yep. So our engineers developed a transplant process to get the virions inside of our little guys right away, right out the gate.
Is that what they call that? The gate?
The gate. Because it's part of the body
Yeah.
that the little guys pop out of.
The gate.
The gate. So the humans are onto this idea. They call it the hygiene hypothesis. They notice that lowered incidence of early childhood infections associated with increased hyperimmune activity, like allergies, hay fever, and asthma. The idea is that human immunity requires instruction from its surroundings. And the ultra-hygienic approach to nurturing children might have a detrimental effect.
You sound like you know a thing or two about this.
Well, we've been through this before, to say the least.
Yeah, Mickey has a bubble boy back home.
I have a lot of children back home.
And that's why I've never liked spaces that are too clean. What's most interesting to me about the humans is that the virus is found inside of babies after they've been on the outside a while, outside the gate, are mostly unique. And when they sequence babies' viromes, they find that most of those sequences don't correspond to any other known viruses.
Whoa. I mean, it's not like they're coming from nowhere.
Oh.
It's more probably like the total number of viruses is huge, and the number of humans that have actually managed to look at it is small. So.
And the number of viruses that number of humans has looked at is pretty small. And it's really unclear of what happens to the virome as the babies grow up. Do they keep these unknown viruses? Or do they collect viruses that are much more similar to the people around them? Like, you know, they keep cats down there. Can they get cat viruses?
Maybe.
Cow viruses?
Maybe.
A life is pretty...
Whoa. That's my space worm. My worms grow into those when I don't eat them fast enough. It only takes about a week for them to metamorphose when they're outside the wormatorium. There's still some bugs.
That's the whole problem. Maybe just stick a virus in it? I remember someone telling me that could improve the situation.
Well, I could design a virus to wipe out all the moths, but...
That's something.
Have you heard of TTV, the Torque Tanovirus on Earth?
Is that a virus that infects wrenches? I'm very funny.
No. It doesn't seem to cause any kind of disease. But it's found in a lot of humans. They're not really sure what's going on.
That is often the case with humans, but I bet you, this is some galactic demystifying science time, that it has something to do with the immune system. Humans who have high levels of TTV tend to tolerate blood transfusions and organ transplants much better, which makes me think that the high levels of virus indicate immune system tolerance. When there's a lot of the virus around, it shows that the person's immune system is calmer. It isn't so revved that it attacks unthreatening visitors. It's like you welcome people into your house and you only really attack them if they're bad for you, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes I attack people just for fun.
Well, that's why I don't invite you over. Except for when we're in the spaceship together.
Another strange thing about infections and the virome is that there's a serious chunk of human genes.
Yeah? Like all of them? No, I'm kidding. What about human genes?
There's a serious chunk of human genes called endogenous retroviruses that look a lot like the remnants of ancient viruses.
Ooh.
Pieces of the genetic information are there, but large portions of the program have been discarded, like cell entry and replication.
That's pretty crazy. And what's even stranger is that humans aren't the only ones that have these ancient viruses. All kinds of animals have endogenous retroviruses hanging around in their genomes, which kind of makes it seem as if virions are a mechanism by which organisms can exchange DNA rather than simply existing to cause disease. Like this cross-generational way of sending around pieces of DNA.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Don't want to give away too much, but it's possible. Whatever the case, human scientists are starting to realize infection is much, much more complicated than Koch's postulates. There's just more to staying healthy than outright avoidance of viruses and bacteria.
Yep, and space moths. Gotta avoid the space moths.
And for a while now, they've known that bacteria serve them. They digest waste and tidy up dead cells. But viruses? They're not so sure. Still, viruses clearly reflect a communication system stretching far beyond sickness and single human lifespan. And it's getting easier and cheaper for the Earth's scientists to figure out how those viral networks function.
Yeah. But there's a big challenge that's still ahead for the humans. They have to figure out how to make sense of the vast swaths of information that they're collecting. Because the technology that uses that information to help people live longer, healthier lives is going to be the next big thing down on Earth.
Yep.
But it's going to require getting past all these correlative studies and really deep into cause and effect.
Mechanism.
Yeah, because even though you can build technology sometimes accidentally, this sort of fine-tuned stuff requires you to do some real science to be able to make something really useful.
Yeah. Get down to the cause. So, it's going to take some hard work from whole generations of humans interested in how things work.
Yeah.
How they work, rather than how to make things work for them.
Yeah.
Technology is cool, but it can be a little misguided without understanding the wider impact.
Yeah. Antibiotics are a great example of this. They can kill some microbes, but when you overuse them, you can select for super robust bacteria that are even more harmful. You end up in a worse situation than when you started, though your technology is really good.
Yeah, and even more so, humans are going to have to find a way to motivate themselves to take good care of their own cells.
Yeah.
Sure, Allothlossians increase lifespan by injecting the right collection of viruses, plenty of engineering.
Yeah.
But to get here, it's been a bit more complicated. We had to make serious changes to our culture. Ubiquitous exercise, regular nature breaks, meaningful work, and more time with friends and family.
Good thing we don't have any of that here on this ship. I guess we have meaningful work.
Yeah,
We should be okay.
I miss my babies.
Well, when you have 10,000 of them, do you really miss... Never mind.
I know them all.
Nature doesn't really let anyone get away with being unhealthy for too long, even when fancy technology is involved. Koch and Henley were right in that many bacteria and viruses are important to infectious disease. So they came up with some basic principles that allowed humans to explore those ideas. But there's more to microbes than viruses and disease. They're actually part of a complex microscopic world that unfolds inside of each human and silently instructs their desires, their genes, and who their children will become.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yep.
So,
Mystery of life.
I guess it wraps up the discussion of contagion and disease. What are we going to talk about next time?
I gotta go talk about these space moths.
Yeah, where'd that thing go?
Oh, I don't want to know. Till next time, humans.
Bye.